RaccoonMan and Draconic Sorceress present the Curio Archives, Episode 3, A Thief in the Night.
Statement of Vertebrae on the disappearance of Vertebrae. Original statement given in an unknown date, estimated some 10 years ago. Audio recording by Khnnin, head archivist of the Curio Institute. Statement begins. I apologize for my briskness. We have another set of missing person reports to file sitting on the desk at home for someone that will never be found, so I'll try my best to keep this short. My name is Verda, and I worked as a pâtissier with my 2 co-workers and siblings in a little shop we own, not far south from here. The Skull and Crossbones. I didn't bring Azra on this trip here to give you my statement, because I know things that she doesn't, and I want her to be able to hope, however futilely, that Herta can be found. I make pastries and little acrylic pens and badges. Azra makes drinks and serves customers, and Herta works on larger scale products or orders from specific clients. It makes a decent amount of money, and we all save by living in a flat together. That's about all you'll need to know about us. I'd rather we stay somewhat private when we can. The important knowledge, however, is about Herta, her hobbies, and how she disappears. Herta likes bones and dead things. That is to be expected. We all kind of do. It's something we bonded over when things were rocky. I own a lot of skull jewelry, and Azra owns one of those massive 10-foot skeleton statues and dresses it in random pieces of fashion during Halloween. But Herta collects bones. It's something she got into when we first found a dead animal in the forest behind our flat. A fat little rat, once plump body torn to bits, and its inner viscera either missing or scattered on the ground around it. I thought we should leave it, but ever the opportunist, Herta had an idea. She'd learned about it on Tumblr, I think, how to clean an animal and set its bones and sanitize it and all that. So she did. She prepared its body and dismembered it and put it into a bucket. It was just a random old rusty thing we had. Who needs, like, an iron bucket in this day and age? So she cut herself a few times on it, putting drops of blood into it as she prepared it for waiting. For about a month, the body sat in the forest, in a bucket full of solution and water and a single drop of blood. It reeked to high hell, and I always thought I heard something outside on the nights when I was alone in the house, stalking the bucket like a perverse offering. Nothing came from it, though, and a month later, Herta had a new piece of fun decoration to put in a jar and call a hobby. I thought this would end up being a one-time thing. A weird but fun experience for us all. Then came the raccoon in a similar state, bloated and pus-ridden though newly dead, its inner organs all just missing. And she did it again, and then again, and then again. Every time she became clumsier as the bucket became more and more worn. Near the end I was genuinely worried about self-harm with how badly she cut her hands sometimes, more and more blood diluting the fluid as time went on. And I heard that pacing, again and again and again. It became bolder, more frequent. It came even when everyone was home. Azra was worried about it, but Herta brushed her off, said it was just some wild animal drawn by the smell. I didn't believe that. We put the jars in the house, we put the jars in the shop. Hell, I think she gave some out to some of her like-minded friends. It was a bit gross and definitely not legal, but it was fun for her, so I let it happen. And if she got seriously injured, I would change my mind and put my foot down on all of this. I should have changed my mind. One night, the very night of her disappearance, it was just me and her in the house. I was reading a book, and she was listening to some music. There was a knock on the window. We live on the first floor, so it was the window leading outward in the direction of the forest. I don't know how Herta managed to hear it while also listening to music. It was a quiet thing. Private, as if it was targeted, just for her. She turned to the window, and for a second there was a look on her face. There's no better way to describe it than fear. Her mouth gaped, her eyes widened just an inch, and it looked like she was going to scream and never stop. But after the second passed, it changed. It changed to elation, euphoria. Like a kid on Christmas, she looked at the window and saw something, and it must have been something she had always always wanted for her to be that happy. She didn't even turn to me, not a goodbye, not anything. She just walked at the apartment door, in a haste bordering on desperation. I was stunned for a moment with everything that just happened in front of me, but I eventually moved to action. I wanted to know what just happened. So I followed her. I followed her outside the apartment and past the unused playground and the rickety fence to the edge of the forest. I followed her inside the forest as well, though she moved like it was a path she'd always walked her whole life, though both of us knew she wasn't this outdoorsy. I followed and followed her in the dead of night, into a forest I didn't feel safe in. I don't know why I didn't just call out her name or ask what was happening. I felt kind of like one of those farm animals you see on those animal cruelty videos. Blindfolded, helpless, moving down a conveyor belt I had no hope of turning around on. So I followed, until I saw a clearing up ahead. She picked up the pace then. She started sprinting, faster than I've ever seen a person move before. She made it past the trees where I could no longer see. I tried my best to follow, but as I got closer and closer, my gut churned more and more as the harsh smell of copper assaulted my nose. With the last push, I reached the tree line and looked out at the most horrifying thing I've ever seen. It stood there, easily 10 feet tall. Its whole body was covered in a dull, orange resin-like substance. It had a moose skull where its face should be, turned sideways and littered with holes from where the worms must have crawled and wriggled in and out of it, making holes akin to eyes. It had grown 2 more horns than normal, jutting haphazardly from the skull and reaching toward the air like a claw. It had 4 arms. 2 of them were full of fresh, oozing viscera from the carcass of a deer that sat near its feet. One of the arms held a bloodied sack, filled to bursting with what must have been organs from the dozens of different animals that showed up on our doorstep. The last arm held an almost gentle hold around Herda, as she sat on her knees and ate from the massacred deer's corpse. I don't know how long I watched. Time seemed to almost stand still. I watched and watched as Herda ate and chewed and guzzled all the grit and gristle and marrow from the lifeless animal. After she was finished with that, she moved to the bone, each bite making a sickening crunch, surely some of which was her own teeth. After the bone, only one thing remained. The head. I will spare you the details. When it was all finished, Herda was still on her knees, with the dopiest look I've ever seen on her face. She had the same distended and swollen stomach of all those animals. The thing towering above her stopped holding her, and in a single swift movement after appraising her, it shoved its claws deep inside her body and pulled out her heart. Herda didn't flinch at this, simply sat there like a cow who doesn't know what awaits it at the end of the line. Herda's heart thumped readily in its hands, as if still pulsing blood into the body of a surely dead woman. The orange resin on the creature began to glow, and I smelled something awful, like a mass of flesh had been singed and slowly left to char. Then it took her heart and squeezed it till nothing was left. After that, Herda turned and looked at me with that same smile I'd seen on her face so many times before, and gave me a little wave. I turned around and walked home. Statement ends. A truly gruesome case, one no one ever bothered to look into or follow up. I had Deidre dig into the missing person report, and one vertebrae did go missing around 10 years back. No clues were ever found, and the case was summarily dropped. I didn't have much hope, but I had Orpheus see if he could find Verda or Azra, and apparently they still live around here and run the same shop, though they changed departments. I did a little research of my own for this one. I looked into the forest at the statement references. According to an old local legend, a thief lives there, and every 10 years it will latch on to the first person whose blood it gets the scent of, and drag them away to turn them into a beast of the wild. Clearly a tale made up by mothers to ward away kids from playing on any rusty old swing sets or straying too far into the forest. But a new missing persons case was recorded in the area not very long ago. They lived in the same apartment. Recording ends.
Supplemental. Khnnin keeps talking about this Deidre person. Deidre's already done that. Don't worry, Deidre's on it. I don't know of a Deidre who works here or who has ever worked here. That's not even how you're supposed to pronounce that name. Am I stupid? Am I missing something? There's no way I missed us hiring an entire 4th archival assistant. There's only supposed to be the 3 of us here. Something is going on and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. End supplemental. Additional supplemental. False alarm. It would seem that Deidre Travis is one of Idell's many aliases, which would also explain my confusion in my first supplemental. End supplemental. The Curio Archives is a fan work created by RaccoonMan and Draconic Sorceress, based on the Magnus Archives by Rusty Quill. It combines characters who have made their home on this channel with the elaborate horror universe of Jonathan Sims. Please support the official release on rustyquill.com and consider donating to their Patreon. This episode starred RaccoonMan as Khnnin Maz, the Archivist, and Deidre Mercer as Orpheus Valor. Thanks for listening.